Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Venture Outfitter Weekly. We're here this week catching up again on entrepreneurs' activities and things going on in the Venture Outfitter and Tech Ranch ecosystems. Um, I'd like to just kind of remind everybody that Tech Ranch has worked with entrepreneurs all over the world. We've done a variety of activities and programs, both here in Texas, throughout the US, and internationally with different countries. And are still looking at building out a lot of new programs and innovation bridges and activities, and working and engaging with entrepreneurs and all the entrepreneurial ecosystems out there. With that, Kevin's actually not able to join us today because he's actually working on one of those programs as we speak. Jokingly, he hasn't really gone fishing, but I may be doing that next week. And otherwise, he's left us with a nice video for everybody to watch and kind of get some insight into some of the activities that have been going on and what Kevin's been up to the past couple of weeks, especially since his return back from his trip to Hungary. And I know people are coming in while we're kind of starting the session now, so hopefully everybody will get a chance to kind of get any missed info or something later once the recording is up online. I'll go ahead and get started on playing this video.
Hello to the Tech Ranch community. Hey, this is one of the very few times that I'm not going to be with you during the Venture Outfitter Weekly. And I'm going to just give you an update real quick. And I thought that I'm so concerned about not being able to join you that I figured I'd just go ahead and record something really quick and make sure we get a chance to follow up sometime very soon. Let me just tell you kind of what's going on over the last little bit. A lot of you know that there's been a bunch of different activities that were happening. And, I thought it was worthy enough, especially since I was going to miss today's meeting and I was traveling last week to Hungary, that I would actually do a quick update that could be shared as part of tomorrow's program. So let's see what's happening. So obviously around Tech Ranch, that our focus is how can we actually get as many entrepreneurs into this interaction, this community that we have that keeps on deploying all these different solutions that really make the world a better place. And that's what the conversation's about today. And why is it that Kevin's gone fishing? Well, Kevin hasn't gone fishing. I'll tell you what's happening. Just as a reminder, this whole idea of working with entrepreneurs both in Austin and around the world started at the very beginning of my career back when everyone jokes that I still had hair, and I opened up my first business, and my first client was a bank in Mexico. And what that has taught me is the power of international connections, both as a customer of that process as well as a supplier. And, we've been talking about this project in Budapest, Hungary. That's where I was last week. And in the coming weeks, I will be in Brno, Czech Republic. In fact, today, while you're listening to this video, I'm going to be working with a group of entrepreneurs, giving some feedback in the whole process, preparing for being in the Czech Republic in Brno in January 17th of this next year, 2022. So I'll be there working with entrepreneurs, but we have some prep work that we're going to be doing during the hours that we couldn't move around because of some constraints. And so that's why I'm leaving a video for you. But obviously, later today too, we're going to be hosting some entrepreneurs from Chile. Actually, they're going to be in Austin over the next 4 days. And what's exciting about that is some of the seeds that are planted actually make that work happen. Some of you know that I was in Chile all the way back to 2003. But in 2013, one of the entrepreneurs that's now built a business called Coel, that is a $25 million business in Chile now, is entering the U.S. market. Really compelling technology about how they use AI for engaging around checking out equipment and pipelines and stuff like that. Security situations where you want to make sure that you're not, that you actually, like the pipeline doesn't have holes in it and things like that. So interesting to see the history there, because this whole idea, and then the project we did in Hungary this last week, really drives towards this point. William Gibson said it this way. He said, the future's already here, it's just not widely distributed yet. And the Kevin Koym corollary is to say, all the world's problems have already been solved. It's just a matter of connecting the entrepreneur with the solution to the market with the problem. And in the examples that I'm going to give from Brno and the Czech Republic, as well as the ones I'm about to dig into a little bit more that I saw last week in Hungary, as well as the project that I just mentioned, or the startup that actually it's no longer a startup, but a scale-up from Chile that we'll be hosting over the next few days, as well as a number of other entrepreneurs from Chile. You can really start to see this whole idea. You can see how these connections really do make a difference, and that what we're here to do is build this world of shared prosperity, not just for the elite that might, be at the top of the pyramid or something like that, but how is it we can really open up a world of shared prosperity and solve all these different problems, and do it with a business model, do it with startups, and help the entrepreneurs that are taking on that work. The key issue here is getting across the venture valley of death, especially if you're entering a new market, an international market, whether it's coming to the United States or someplace else. To really gain that access, we have to, as a community, help each other get across this boundary, this idea. The venture valley of death is, you start bleeding cash, tears, blood, sweat, all the different things that entrepreneurs have to go through to get to the other side. How can we as a community help each other together? Because, if we really are committed to this idea about shared prosperity, this is one of the ways that we can do this. And we're seeing it happen, and I'm excited about that. So back to what happened last week and building the Texas-Hungary Venture Bridge. Because if you have entrepreneur programs, first at the base level, you can help entrepreneurs, startup scale-ups. The next level is you build these bridges out, and by building these bridges on all these different places around the world, whether it's the entrepreneurs that we worked with in South Australia, or South Korea, or Norway, or in Germany, or any of the other places more recently, obviously Mexico, Italy, Russia, and then obviously in Texas and Oklahoma as well in recent months, days, and years. We can build these bridges. And so the goals of the Texas-Hungary Bridge was to start that collaboration, find some early chances of success, and I've already got some examples about that, and then looking at how we can expand our work together. So that's what's going on. The program was, this is the program, and last week was the thing that's labeled today, and I can go into more details for any of you that actually want to hear more. Or if you're working with us and you're considering getting one of these venture bridges and more at the ecosystem level, we work with entrepreneurs and startups and scale-ups directly one-on-one, but also, the idea is to work with ecosystems like country partners, city partners, state partners around the world to actually help their entrepreneurs go back and forth. And not just to build one direction relationships. It shouldn't just be coming to the U.S. It should be bi-directional, or actually multiple directions from here on out. But this is where we started. We had some of the programs this is a very short idea about some of the things that we went through last week. But connecting with stakeholders, entrepreneurs, governmental officials, venture capitalists, scientists, large corporations. We've already connected one of the large corporations that has an innovation project into a company here in Austin, as well as one of the startups based out of Budapest is now already connected to one of the cities in Mexico with a client there. And this has already happened. We're trying to move very, very fast on this whole process. And for those of you all that have been in some of the other programs, that we do some really special stuff with the technology adoption curve and elevator pitches and things like that. But really, the key thing is already helping some of these companies, or these early stage companies, broach these different interactions, as well as some of the later stage corporations that are driving innovation back and forth. So our partners, BME Z10. BME is kind of like one of the universities in Budapest. It's kind of like I've been told, the MIT of Hungary. And Z10 is the incubator. So we did a lot of projects there. We had our partner called Tungstrom. Tungstrom is the lighting division that was formerly of GE that went through a management buyout in 2019. So we got to see some really interesting things. Kajitari Global, obviously this has been Ramirez and his team, and then the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Hungary, and then the City of Austin, the Hungarian American Chamber of Commerce, and the Export Organization for Hungary. Thank you to all of our partners that made this possible. The entrepreneurs in Hungary, I really had a lot of fun interacting with them. Both, as you can see, we on the lower right, we worked with some students at BME that were not really in the entrepreneurial stage. And then the core program, we had 20 different teams represented. That's in that middle picture. Obviously, there was a little bit of drink to be had with entrepreneurs that we see on the lower right as well. One of the fun things was that one of the teams called Harris Digital, two of the PhDs have their own band. So it's almost like it was very Austin type of thing to go, not just work with them from the standpoint of interacting with them, on their venture, but then go have a drink with them and see them play in their band. Really great music by Austin standards. I was really happy about that. But yeah, had some really good experiences working with them back and forth. We also got to look into some deeper technology, and some of the technologies that were there are deep tech. Like some of the technology around oncology, which is cancer. How do you take on cancer? Two of the ventures that we're going to end up connecting into Texas have amazing technology for dealing with cancer. One of them is they've got this filter of how do you filter out cancer that's in the blood, that's going through, you have something, maybe cancer in your liver, and all of a sudden it starts metastasizing and getting into other parts of your body. Amazing piece of technology for that. A couple other things as well, but several different pieces. In the picture that you see in the upper right, we actually got to see one of the vertical farms. For how is it you actually can take farming to scale, and in a vertical farm, like with 1 acre of land, you can do 400 times the amount of food in this area just because of the way you use lighting and stuff like that. Really interesting stuff. We'll tell you a lot more about this, and in the report that we write, that we publish about this, that we'll publish at techranch.com/bridge Hungary, we'll tell you even more about what's going on with the different technologies. And most importantly, connecting entrepreneurs around the world, so that they can actually take on these markets together. As well, there was lots of sites. Given that I was there during close to Christmas, you saw some amazing Christmas decorations, some amazing other pieces. And I probably took more than 30 pictures of this bridge that goes across the Danube River between the Buda and the Pest side of the city, which I didn't know before actually reading about this, that the two cities are tied together through a series of bridges, and this is one of the ones that became my favorite one. But got to do a lot of interesting, the nightlife, the people, very open, and really enjoyed to get to participate in this as well. And then there was a really serious side. And I think this is one thing that we have to remember as entrepreneurs. When I say that entrepreneurs create culture, it's just like if you think that your job is just building a company and with a piece of technology, and I have to remind you, you are the deliverers of bringing culture to the world. And we need that because we have horrors. Like I went to a place called the House of Terror. Several different Hungarians told me about it because they very well like to make sure that this never happens again in their country. They faced the Nazis, they faced the Soviets, and had a lot of oppression that happened during that time. And I'm not saying that those are the only two parties out there that have ever caused problems in the world. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is I got to see a lot of the history of this. And I think this is important to remind us, why do entrepreneurs that are driving impact innovation, technology that changes the world for the better, why do we do our work? It's because stuff like this doesn't have to happen. Stuff like this doesn't have to happen, and we are active. We're active citizens about taking this on, and we can do things so that the world doesn't have to face horrors like this ever again. Not only can we make sure that that there are ways of taking care of your health care and stuff like that, but we also have to build a world that works so that people don't turn to authoritarian regimes like this about what happened. And if you're ever in Budapest, this is definitely one of the places I would visit because it gives perspective about our work. And I just want to remind you one more time in this is part of our work is to create culture. And we do that by building products and companies that really lead in the world. So I acknowledge you for that. Let's continue to do that. Just a reminder again, Shared prosperity. That's what we're all about. This community that's being built, we're working together to build shared prosperity so we don't have to face that sort of stuff ever again. And so I want to acknowledge you about that. I miss not getting to be there with you today, or actually, that is tomorrow morning. But I'll be building another bridge that we're going to tie into this network and embrace more entrepreneurs. And it's just part of what I'm doing for our network today. And with that, I want to make sure that you know about Omar Zaki, our venture partner that's focused on the patient care innovation bridge, as well as he is Egyptian American and is focused a lot of the relationships that are happening in the Middle East, especially on Egypt. Some special things about that. Here he's going to do an Ask Me Anything session today. Ask him anything. And then next week, when I am back, we're going to have a follow-up program next week, December 9th, at this time, where we're going to really get in the rigor of the next stage of the Hungarian bridge. That being said, it'll be good for interacting not only with the entrepreneurs from Hungary, but those of you that might want to tie in to the opportunities there. And I've already, like I mentioned earlier, already created some connections because I immediately saw opportunities. We've already seen that as well, right? We heard a story just recently about interactions between Mexico to Texas to Italy, and we have examples of our entrepreneurs that are already working between Egypt, Italy, Mexico, and Texas. So we'll see even more of that. But today you're going to be in great hands with Omar. Thank you, Omar, for taking over the VO Weekly this week. And with that, I just want to say it's always an honor to work with entrepreneurs that are driven by vision and values. Let's go change the world for the better together. Thank you all.
All right, with that, any feedback or kind of first impressions on the video? Should I start picking on people? Melvin, why don't you tell me what you thought of Kevin's message?
And that was beautiful that, each of the points that he covered were I say all of these flowery words, but, it strikes a heart chord, Omar. I think that people can see what Kevin's talking about there and that he's living it. Asking you to stand in here and do the Ask Me Anything speaks volumes for you. So thank you for doing this. And a lot of exciting things that are going on specifically right now in Hungary, but he tied it back to eons ago stuff that's going on, and we're still seeing benefits from that today. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. I see some names here I'm not super familiar with. If you don't mind, I'm going to call your name, and if you're available, I'd love to hear from you and or see you. David Nichols.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing, David?
Pretty good.
Are you a past member of the Tech Ranch ecosystem?
No, I met Kevin when I was on a trade or like a delegation from Central Europe to Austin a couple of weeks ago, and I actually live in Prague,
Okay.
and so I'm interested in engaging with the U.S. market.
Very cool. What are you doing in Prague?
I have a software company. We have a solution. Basically, our thing is to empower AI and data science solutions to scale in enterprises.
Great. How's the weather in Prague right now?
Well, it's fairly cold, but I had a call today with a guy in Siberia, and that kind of put it in perspective. It's 7 degrees centigrade here, and it's -10 in the place where the guy was.
Oh, I'm not jealous for that.
What's it like in Austin? Still nice, huh?
It's nice. It's a little chilly in the morning, but it gets to the like mid 70s by afternoon, so it's not bad.
Same as 2 weeks ago. Sounds great.
Yeah. Well, nice to meet you, David. Thanks for joining us.
You too.
How about Sabina? Am I saying that right? All right, I'll let we'll go with the next one. How about Celia? Celia, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Celia.
I'm in Austin. Hi, I'm in Austin. So
Okay,
for
great.
me, for me, this is very special because this is such a coincidence of life that, it happens for a purpose. I'm American, I'm Hungarian. I got to know Kevin with the Hungarian tax and venture bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I also live here in Austin part-time of the year. So now currently I'm in Austin, but
Okay,
I'm
great.
going back to Hungary on Sunday. So
How often are you going back and forth?
every 2 months.
Every 2 months. Okay. And that's for work or just for personal reasons or?
I need to go back mainly personal reasons. My
Yeah.
mom is 82 and she lives in Hungary, but also for work.
Yeah.
And
And what kind of work are you
enjoy
doing?
it. Sorry?
What kind of work are you doing?
We have or I own a company called Medical Scan, which deals with health and pharmaceutical related data, softwares, solutions, and basically real world evidence. I don't know whether you have heard this
Yeah.
abbreviation. It's now a very hot topic, and we do this type of research. And
Okay.
based on that, we also developed a software which Kevin likes also, or his first feedback was very positive. It's called MyClick Doctor, which links doctors to patients and to the pharmaceutical industry. So this is what we do.
Yeah. Okay, great. Great. Well, so I don't know if he maybe mentioned to you or not about my background in telehealth and digital health, and that I work mostly around health tech and digital health, early stage venture business model support here at TechRanch as a venture partner. And I'm doing some interesting, collaborations with other markets, Middle East, countries like Egypt. And, we've been in discussions with some of our partners and our entrepreneurs in markets like Mexico. And I know Kevin has talked to me about a few healthcare related startups as well in Hungary through the Hungary Bridge that he wants me to be, looking at as well. So, would love to learn more about your software and your solutions and see how we can get you kind of, plugged into not only the ecosystem generally, but more specifically around our patient care innovation bridge and how we can maybe, again, develop collaborations that work for the system, right? For kind of the startups. I think that there's some interesting stuff. I was involved in a webinar last week with Sanofi around, healthcare innovation for the pharma industry. And, I think that there's some interesting, kind of discussions around how they're looking at that and leveraging, for example, data and stuff. So I'd love to learn more and kind of maybe see how we can plug you in.
Okay, I would love to.
Great. Great. Well, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us.
Nice to meet you.
How about Richard? Are you there, Richard Jesse?
Yes, I'm here. Hold on, let me turn it on. Can you guys see me?
Yes.
All right. Hi, Omar. Nice to meet you. I was on some of the calls before with Kevin. I'm currently in the Houston area, but I move around quite a bit. Not as much as Celia, but Austin, Houston, and in the Denver area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here because I represent a Hungarian company that has some innovation that we are trying to popularize in the US and scale up. And Kevin's well aware of this. He was talking to one of the guys in Hungary. I'm Hungarian, but I've been in the US for 25 years. And
Okay.
I also am involved with a few startups that are in different phases of their activities, some with proof of concept, some just business planning. So at some point, it'll be interesting to get plugged into TechRanch with those as well.
Yeah. What kind of startups are they?
One is biomed. The other one, basically imaging. The other one is food delivery, kind of like a DoorDash, but for a special niche.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, great. Yeah. I mean, again, let me know if there's any opportunity for us to kind of talk and learn more about, these companies, how, you're helping develop them and kind of at what stages that they're at, how we can support from our side here at TechRanch and, give you any additional resources or access to, you know, kind of different tools or support or mentorship, whatever it is that, you know, maybe each of these kind of situations is. It's always good to just kind of have awareness. So I think, you know, every company, every founder is, you know, always at a very unique stage of developing their business, right? And even us as advisors, when we work with founders, we're also very much an entrepreneur in that sense, where we're at a unique stage of supporting that founder and that business. And, you know, we kind of have to go along with where they are as a stage of development and kind of needs, but also for ourselves as, you know, supporting mentors and advisors, you know, again, you know, how do we also manage, you know, and kind of work with the different startups and opportunities. So I think one of the simplest things is always, you know, just having awareness between us and just, you know, knowing what's going on. We don't have to necessarily dive into like, you know, very confidential or very, you know, detailed kind of discussions about what's happening, but you know, you never know when you kind of just give an update on, hey, yeah, I'm doing this right now, or I've, you know, been involved with this group and we've been developing this product, for example, or we're testing, you know, the market in this fashion. And, you know, somebody's going to be on the call that may relate somehow and may be able to kind of give you a nugget of information and it'd be free and it'll help. Or it'll be, you know, oh, I've done that before. I can potentially support in some capacity. And again, you know, sometimes just the awareness with other markets, knowing what's happening, you know, helps. I know, you know, we saw, as Kevin mentioned in the video, several interactions, you know, through our Venture Outfitter program that have been really interesting between entrepreneurs in different markets and different countries. And again, it helps in your journey as an entrepreneur when you get recognition and acknowledgement, and you kind of, you know, get even validation by having conversations with people in a completely different country and market and ecosystem, but that share the same struggle or share the same vision or share the same, you know, appetite for kind of what you're working on and doing. And it just helps. I think, you know, every little element of support we can get helps us on these journeys. So
yeah, definitely. And just any kind of feedback in these early stages is just so valuable. And the other thing that we're looking for is obviously connections. Sometimes the difficulty is to get plugged and get in front of not necessarily, you know, the customer per se, but like partners, other people who are kind of in the know in that particular industry or segment. So hopefully we can connect on those as well.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and that's kind of additionally a testament to why we're building our Venture Outfitter ecosystem, you know, really as a community and a network, right? And it's kind of twofold in the sense that the community is there to just be involved and be a part of the community and support each other and, you know, just again, create awareness around what we're doing and what we may need. But then the network takes it to another level where there's actual, you know, engagement and involvement with, you know, a variety of the experts, the consultants, the vendors, the different corporate partnerships that we're building, you know, again, access to a lot of the coaching and kind of mentorship and advisory that specifically companies and founders may need. So I'd invite you to check out our Venture Outfitter community and network. I don't know if, you know, you've been already visited. It's on Mighty Networks, a platform that we're using right now to do our community and network management. But Kevin may have already told you about it or invited you. I don't know.
I have not joined up, just priorities, but I'm planning to.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, again, it's still in a beta, you know, a stage of a product development as we're developing it now. And we're, you know, always looking for everybody's feedback, whoever's been in there and just kind of poked around and, you know, found some ways to generate value or is feeling like there's ideas of how we can create more value for our members. You know, please always let us know. Kevin and I and our team are always looking for good feedback and ideas for how we can improve the experience and the, you know, opportunity for our ecosystem members to engage with each other and get benefits and value. And just, you know, let me know if you have any questions. Would love to kind of walk you through it and find out ways that we can get the word out for you, you know, as necessary when necessary.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Omar.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. All right. Well, I mean, ask me anything. Anybody have any kind of interesting things pondering, maybe they're trying to figure out, or they kind of have seen in the news or anything related to, you know,
I have a
fundraising and investors. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. I was going to ask a question from Kevin. He had this visit last week to Hungary,
Yeah.
and Hungary in the news in not the most positive light quite often. And I was wondering if that might have an effect in the marketability of Hungarian innovation, ideas, people, culture in general, like the connection. Is it a big barrier to connection, or how what's the approach that he would recommend?
So give me a bit of background. What is it specifically?
Oh yeah, so we have in Hungary. Well, the elected government is very nationalistic and pretty conservative, right on the right, and there's some discussions about LGBT laws recently introduced. So it don't come across as one of the modern democratic civilizations.
Okay.
I think based on the news. And since I'm working with some Hungarian companies and some non-Hungarian, but those Hungarian companies are kind of suspicious about that being an issue further down the line, a trust issue, or whether people want to invest money potentially into part of the world where it is viewed as a step backwards instead of forward.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's interesting. And I guess the first thing I'll tell you is, it's kind of what was the impression on the flip side of the Hungarians trying to do business with Americans while Trump was in office?
Yeah, that's past history. I don't really.
Did you feel like there was like a general impression or desirability or, kind of,
I did not really detect it, but since both Trump and the Hungarian Prime Minister were kind of a similar mold, in a way, nobody really took the time to evaluate it. Now there's a big polarity between the two leaders, and that could cause some sort of barriers to appear. I see David's comment in the chat, and I think it's a good comment. Hungary is such a small country. You have to be sort of a world news fanatic to really know this, but sometimes it does come up.
Well, so I guess the point maybe I'm trying to drive with is that we can never really control the situations that are going on in the country and with the government, and a lot of times it does provide some sort of unfortunate image or kind of kind of feeling or whatever around that market and what's in that market, but it's never, again, to those who are really willing to figure things out. They look through that and they see through that, and again, it's like, do we believe the media every day if we just watch the headlines and kind of that's how we judge what's going on and what people are like? No, I think, again, for those of us who are trying to be more authentic and real and actually do the things that we feel have purpose, we find out the truth, and we deal with people to find out those truths. And so I don't think necessarily you're going to have, or Hungarian businessmen and women and entrepreneurs are going to have a difficult time just because of the nationalistic kind of political situation that's going on there. I think it's a matter of how each of them represent themselves as a business and as a founder in front of who they're trying to deal with, and always, again, just making sure that you are going out of your way to deal with the right person. So doing the background research and homework, and kind of also having conversations with folks to get the right sort of introductions in place really kind of removes a lot of those risks away, because then it's first person relationship kind of development, and there's trust there, and people don't necessarily focus or hone in on those kind of political situations as much. That's just kind of a general, having worked in the Middle East most of my career, and as you know, during the like 2000s post 9/11, you know, there was a lot of, again, very interesting views and images, you know, related to Middle Eastern anything, right? And you know, whether you were a business or whether you were a traveler or anything. And you know, again, I can't say that I went through a lot of difficulty being an Arab and kind of trying to do business, you know, between the U.S. and the Middle East. But there were people that did face challenges, right? And there's stories and things of, you know, things that happen. And so I think, again, it's just one of those things that you just keep pushing and you know, don't try to let those kind of unfortunate, uncontrollable macro factors, you know, really hamper on you and kind of your drive to keep pushing forward.
Thank you, Omar.
Yeah,
I have a question, Omar.
sure.
Is there any available data or access to data where it's transparent what happened to the American health you know, system industry regarding technology usage now because of the COVID? Are they using more telehealth systems, or you know, what changed in the last 1.5, 2 years?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think, yes, I mean, again, just at a very superficial high level, the answer to your question is yes, there is a lot of, you know, new adoption and much more increased utilization of these technologies. There is data that has been published through some different sources over the past year in terms of kind of how the use of telehealth and remote patient monitoring, for example, has increased, right? And, you know, there's a lot of interesting, I guess, outcomes that are coming out of, you know, what happened through the pandemic that are starting to identify really where, you know, there's high value in using the technology versus there's just an arbitrary need to use the technology because it's there, but it's not actually providing that value. And it also is kind of reflective of the types of patients, the types of healthcare needs and scenarios, and the geographies. You're seeing some interesting, you know, differences between, you know, healthcare systems in the South versus healthcare systems up North, and how they're dealing with the patients, and, you know, the kind of urban versus rural mix of patient base. So yes, to answer your question again, there is data out there. You know, are you thinking, or you're just trying to understand kind of where to find the data?
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
Where to find the data, where to find you know, possibilities or niches for coming with a new solution, and to see what works. As you just said, what worked in the last 1.5 years, or what didn't.
Yeah. So I generally, when I'm doing kind of my own research around trying to find data and any evidence around things related to business models and technology and healthcare, you know, obviously one of the first places that I start with Google, and I just, you know, type in keywords and I see kind of what search results come up. I usually tend to, like, my eyes will pull towards certain domains, right, when I see them come up in the results. And so, you know, things like CDC, things like NIH, things like the Journal of American Medicine, right? JAMA, you know, Johns Hopkins, like names like that usually are kind of, I put them at a class of, you know, automatic validation and credibility, right? Because they are kind of the premier institutes and the premier kind of organizations with the scientists and researchers pulling together that data. And so when they publish something, to me, it's a bit more, you know, of a verified, you know, truth of around that topic, versus there's a lot of other kind of like reports that you can find and you know, just interesting I guess, I don't know, sometimes I think they're just opinions and subjective more than they are really kind of like data that's been collected around the use of something. But you know, I also go to a few kind of digital health or health tech related publications. So one of them is Rock Health. Rock Health does a really good job of, you know, covering what's going on in healthcare innovation with the, you know, startups and the companies and the investments that are related to it. And one of the other things I think, again, that helps is follow the money, right? Like, so like where you read, you know, investment is going into something and you see that there's a lot of investment kind of still going into one area, then also then it indicates that there's a strength in the technology and in the model of that platform. So telehealth, for example, or AI and machine learning and diagnostic imaging, right? Like there's a lot of interest in it now, and there's a lot of money going into it now. So there's probably more sources of information related to it that you can find. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. And generally, your subjective opinion is, did telehealth grow in the last
Yes.
years?
Yes, it did grow. I think the adoption and utilization of telehealth, to be honest, needed the pandemic, although it's unfortunate that we all had to go through a pandemic, but it really needed that as the catalyst for adoption. I've worked in telehealth for over 20 years, and I started advertising second opinions and remote patient kind of interactions back in the early 2000s when Skype was just getting started, right? And we were trying to use Skype as the way that doctors and patients could communicate with each other. And there's a lot of advancement that's happened and a lot of development. And obviously we have companies like Teladoc and Livongo and others that have, been now proven as a business model in the telehealth and telemedicine space. But it really took the pandemic to accelerate all that. Up until the pandemic, there just wasn't really a significant adoption with the providers, the doctors themselves, the systems, and the patients. And I think that forced everybody to now realize this is a better way. It's kind of like Zoom and virtual meetings, right? We all worked in an office. We all still relied on meeting each other in person and being, in a location with each other until pandemic happened. And now we've realized, well, we can still get work done and like this and sit and talk to each other and have conversations and generate value. It's still nice to see each other in person. So obviously it's always great for a doctor and a patient to always, have that in-person relationship as well. But it's clear now we have an alternative. We have a new mechanism and we have ways to kind of continue optimizing. So that's my subjective opinion. I think that there's a lot of new ways that we're going to learn how to better utilize telehealth and mix it with kind of the old traditional model of healthcare delivery. And I think that there will be some interesting advancements now with the, Internet of Things, right? So like the devices, the wearables, all of that, that's going to continue to develop even more interesting, dynamics in that model around the patient and kind of the data and the care of the patient.
Thank you. I agree. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks. Great question. I see RD's on and Richard Hurley's on. Can I pick on one of you?
Yeah, Omar. I had a big year this year. Had a successful cancer treatment procedure. Colon cancer operation, chemo, radiation, the whole thing. And what really struck me was how difficult it was as a patient under extreme stress to handle all the paperwork.
Yeah.
Right. And, there are people out there living on the cusp of death with diabetes. And yet, if they miss a payment to their insurer or whatever, surely there's got to be a way of making all that simpler.
Yeah.
Just the volume of paperwork that just built up from both sides, from the providers and the insurance company, was just crushing, and there has to be a way. I mean, you're in patient management, right?
I'm in a lot of areas. I think generally in healthcare and kind of on the provider side of things, on the patient side of things, and even on the the kind of technology and biotech and device side of things. But I agree with you 100%. I mean, I recently had an interaction with a startup that I'm still in conversations with, and actually I don't know if you remember Kelly Hakes, who's been a part of our weeklies every now and then. Was trying to have her be involved maybe with this company, but they are specializing in providing cancer care support for, you know, employees and their family members that have been subject to cancer, right? So,
Right.
you know, you yourself, you know, may have been subject as a patient and or a relative. And then once that happens and that diagnosis is made, your life from then on is, you know, like you just mentioned, a myriad of complications and just paperwork and meetings and calls and all these things that have to happen that will impact you as a person, obviously, and also impact the company that you work for. And so
Right.
companies now, you know, are getting solutions presented to them like this company, Navisa, which they literally support you along that journey and help you with all of these kind of challenges as part of being the patient and going through that, you know, care journey. So that's one area that I think is interesting, where, you know, some entrepreneurs and some, you know, money, let's say, is going behind the solution development to support the existing, you know, difficulties of our system, right? And so partially, I always call those like Band-Aid treatments, right? Like we're just putting a Band-Aid on something because we know the system is broken and we know that the system shouldn't drive us towards this kind of, you know, extreme paperwork, but we can't just kind of wipe that out in a day and a night, right? Or we can't kind of completely change the whole system in a day and a night with all the different fragmented players in it. But if there's this Band-Aid solution that comes in and helps somebody like Richard through his journey, and it kind of just alleviates that stress on you as a patient, then that's still a win, and it's still kind of a positive direction and may lead to the verification or proof or evidence that the system itself needs to change in certain ways, right? So
Right.
that's just one kind of element from my mind and from kind of just recent, you know, experiences that I think relate to what you talked about. But it's a big topic. There's a lot there, right?
You know, especially when you have complex diagnoses like cancer or diabetes, where you're dealing with multiple specialists, right?
Yeah.
And you're moving from one specialist to another along the chain on your journey, and each individual specialist has their own online portal.
Yeah.
Right. And you're tracking passwords and everything. And as I was going through it, I was saying to myself, wow, you know, I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm actually getting better, right? It looks as though I'm going to survive this. And I kept saying to myself, imagine knowing you're not going to make it, and yet you've got to handle all of this paperwork at the same time. Multiple providers, multiple passwords, multiple portals. You know, at times it seems that when I went in for a blood draw, that the insurance company, you know, and you know, you can run multiple tests from each blood draw. It seemed as though the insurance company would send me one individual letter for, let's say, the 4 tests from each blood draw, right? You would get 4 letters. Yeah. And you're kind of sitting there and you're wondering, why can't all of this just be put on one page? Simple little things like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And, you know, again, it's the unfortunate, I think, dichotomy of, you know, obviously the legal and regulatory frameworks and the liabilities and all the stuff that all these companies and insurances and organizations are going through to, you know, protect themselves and protect us, hopefully, at the end of the day. But it's also just, again, it's employment, right? It's productivity in those, you know, organizations that create the paper, that create the printers, that create the software for these things to be printed. And so it's kind of this never ending cycle that, you know, that I keep saying it. It's like, you know, we all know that it's messed up and we all know that it's, you know, it needs to get fixed, but a lot of the solutions that maybe we all know exist to that could also end up impacting negatively a lot of people in ways that we just don't realize, because, you know, again, you could be shutting down businesses because now they're just irrelevant and they're not necessary, and, you know, all these employees that go along with that. So it's kind of, again, it's an interesting challenge and dichotomy of these, you know, forces and opposing kind of needs in the system. I think that it will work itself out over time. I think, you know, again, this is just the natural, what I love, ingenuity of humankind, right? And our ability to still ultimately, you know, weed out the things that we don't need or want in our lives and our societies, and kind of preserve or, you know, empower more and enable more what we find as better ways to live as you know, humans in society. And I think healthcare is going to be one of those where it's going to take a little longer and be a lot more, difficult, but it will happen over time. And I think we're still at the tip of the iceberg with, the technology and the capabilities and, what can be done. It's just the human element, right? And, going back to Celia's point and kind of what you were saying about all these different portals and logins. I mean, that's one of the things that I see happening is a tremendous amount of consolidation, right? That's coming through all of these platforms, these, EMR, EHR systems, the kind of telehealth portals that every practice and every doctor and every hospital, has. A lot of that's going to get consolidated. There's a bit of, again, another dichotomy here of you have big players like Apple and Microsoft and Amazon that can actually solve that problem for us. And we already use those platforms. But then it goes into trust issues and privacy issues. And that's that, again, other challenge that people are trying to figure out. Well, how do we consolidate these things? So as a patient, I'm not dealing with so many different platforms and portals and tools. But then at the same time, I'm not giving all my information to one person, or I'm not at risk that one organization is going to, manipulate my data or, use it to, my disadvantage or their own advantage. And so I think, again, that's part of this evolution we're going through. That'll be interesting to see how some of the new solutions come out.
And there's just one point that I just want to throw onto the venture outfitters plate for a long-term conversation. Just two frightening statistics. Back in 1900, healthcare ate up about 2% of the economy.
Yeah.
And today it's eating up nearly 18%, right?
Yeah.
And 50% of the US healthcare budget is spent on the last 10 days of the patient's life.
Yeah.
And then another one, diabetes, blood pressure, heart disease consumes 80% of our healthcare budget.
Yeah.
Right. Now, they are some pretty big dinosaurs, sitting right in the room, right?
Yeah.
And maybe preventive in the area of diabetes, preventive has to be on the table. Eat well. Why in the greatest capitalist nation on the planet are there food deserts in the middle of our largest cities?
Yeah.
Right. Why if you're a mom with two young kids, the only thing you can go out and buy are donuts and soda.
Yeah.
Right. Because someone isn't allowed to run a banana stand anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Just simple stuff like that.
100% agreed. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a little anecdotal, but it does touch on what you just talked about. And I think it's, again, elements that we can find where we find alignment in thinking and vision around these types of issues and challenges, but again, delivered in a mechanism that, helps us, again, maybe just, feel better about the situation that we can't control. There's an interesting podcast that I was just introduced to recently called The Metaphysical Milkshake, which has the two hosts are Riza Aslan and Wayne, I think it's the actor, something Rain. And they had Nick Offerman. I don't know if you know him, but he's the actor from Parks and Rec who has the mustache and comes out like, kind of very manly all the time with his voice. And
right.
It's a very interesting episode where they're talking about how nature, really brings us back to feeling human. And he wrote a book. And when you listen to him talk about it, I mean, he's touching on the same exact topics you're talking about, right? Where it's like, what happened to us that we're at this stage now where like you said, a mother can only find a donut or like, a dollar, McDonald's sandwich to feed her kids versus like what we used to do was rely on homegrown vegetables and farm grown vegetables in our community that we
right.
knew who the source of that food was. Like
right.
we don't even know anymore what the source of our food is, right? And that's just this crazy element that we don't even think about anymore, but that's a big impact to us. And so again, I think that there's some interesting stuff there. I agree as well with the whole prevention concept. I'm working with a startup now. I don't know if we've mentioned it in the past, but it's an Egyptian-based startup called Mazboot, which I'm hoping to get involved in some of our sessions in the future. But they're working on chronic disease management and kind of helping the patient manage their journey basically as a diabetic or a hypertension patient from diagnosis. And again, there's a lot of these elements of like, how do you get the patient to willingly go through this journey, right? And to, like, actually participate in their care, versus traditionally they relied on the doctor to tell them what to do and to keep checking on them and stuff. And there's a shift in behavior that goes with that. And I'd say it's, again, to me, an evolution that we just have to keep pushing and keep testing and trialing, and eventually these new models will click and they will become more wide scale and adopted, and hopefully the new foundations of our wellness and health into the future. I appreciate your questions and commentary, Richard, as always.
Well, also, there was also another frightening statistic where they did a comparison, and they've discovered that the health of the poorest of the poor in the UK is better than the health of America's richest 1%.
Yeah.
Because even though the poorest of the poor, they still eat fresh food in the UK.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm from Ireland. It's primarily an agricultural country, even though Google and Facebook are in there and they're doing really, really well. Just the magic of fresh food. It's just amazing.
I know. I mean, look, my background is Egyptian, and I go back to Egypt and I see the rural folk in Egypt much healthier and happier than urban folk, who are part of the 1% wealthy, who are part of the highest penetration of diabetes in the world, right? I mean, it's so correlated, and it's so clear now, who are the people that are impacted by these diseases and why, and some of those causes and reasons. And we're just, we're bringing that up now. And I think that that's what we need to keep doing, is talking about these things and making it, aware to everybody that there is choices that we can make. All right, well, I guess we're coming up to the hour now, almost. Any last minute thoughts or anything anybody wants to kind of bring up?
Also, just a scary scenario is the rate at which charity hospitals are closing across the heartland. It seems as though the only place that charity hospitals can survive now are in the middle of New York City or in the middle of Dallas.
Yeah, where they have a lot of donor access. Yeah.
And there is just an epidemic of hospitals closing and healthcare centers closing across America right now. Yeah. Which is pretty scary. And again, this is the richest, wealthiest country in the world, and somehow we're struggling to get basic healthcare to our people. Why?
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Well, I guess with that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining this week, and really appreciate everybody's time and involvement. And always feel free to reach out to me or Kevin or anybody at the team here to kind of work on anything, support anything that you guys are thinking through or doing. And echoing Kevin's words, let's go out and solve the world's problems together for the better, right? And that's what it's all about. So I hope to get to see you guys again next week. And till then, have a great one.
Bye all.